The sun was just peeking over the rolling hills of Willow Creek Ranch, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and orange. Sarah, a woman whose hands knew the feel of horsehair and hay bales better than anything else, was already up and about. She loved these early mornings, the quiet peace before the ranch truly woke up. As she walked toward the stables, a new face caught her eye. It belonged to a beautiful mare, a soft gray with a white star on her forehead. This was Luna, a mare Sarah had just brought to the ranch a few days ago. Luna was new to Willow Creek, and Sarah had noticed something a little different about her from the start. Luna wasn't like the other horses. They would nuzzle Sarah for treats, whinny greetings, or playfully nip at each other. Luna, however, was quiet. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. Very quiet. She stood apart, her dark eyes following Sarah's every move. It wasn't an angry stare or a scared one. It was just watching. From the moment Sarah first saw her in the pasture, Luna's gaze seemed fixed on her. Whether Sarah was mending a fence post, talking to one of the other ranch hands, or simply walking across the yard, Luna's head would turn, her eyes locked on Sarah. Sarah was a kind rancher, known for her gentle way with animals. She'd spent her whole life around horses, learning their different personalities. Some were bold, some shy, some playful, some grumpy. But Luna was a mystery. She was calm, almost serene, but her constant watching made Sarah wonder. It wasn't a quick glance here and there. It was a steady, unwavering focus that sometimes lasted for minutes at a time. Sarah would look up from her work, and there Luna would be, standing perfectly still, her gaze fixed directly on Sarah. One morning, Sarah was feeding the chickens, scattering grain in the dusty yard. She felt that familiar sense of being observed. Turning slowly, she saw Luna at the edge of the pasture, head held high, eyes on her. The other horses were busy grazing, their tails swishing, but Luna remained perfectly still, a silent sentinel. Sarah smiled softly and waved a hand. "Good morning, Luna," she called out, her voice gentle. Luna didn't whinny back, didn't even twitch an ear. She just watched, a living statue. Later that day, Sarah was cleaning out the stalls, whistling a little tune. She moved from one stall to the next, scooping up old hay and replacing it with fresh. When she stepped out of the third stall, she found Luna standing just outside the barn door. The mare was a few yards away, close enough that Sarah could see the tiny flecks of gold in her dark eyes. Luna wasn't trying to get closer, wasn't asking for anything. She was just watching. Again. It wasn't unsettling, not exactly. More like a puzzle. Sarah wondered what Luna was thinking, what she saw. Did the mare feel lonely? Was she trying to understand her new home? Sarah had tried to approach her, to offer a friendly pat or a sweet apple, but Luna would always take a step back, keeping her distance, not running away in fear, but simply maintaining that space, that quiet observation. It was as if Luna was studying Sarah, trying to learn something important, something only Sarah could provide. The other ranch hands had noticed it too. "That Luna," one of them had chuckled. "She's got her eye on you, Sarah." And it was true. Luna wouldn't stop staring at her, a silent, watchful shadow. The puzzle of Luna deepened with each passing day. Sarah continued her ranch duties, always aware of Luna's silent presence. What made it even more peculiar was how Luna behaved around the other horses. The ranch was a lively place, especially for the horses. They loved to play, chasing each other across the wide-open pastures, their manes flying in the wind. Sometimes they would playfully nip and kick, their happy whinnies echoing through the valley. Other times, they gathered in a tight group, heads bowed low, munching contentedly on the sweet grass, their jaws working in a steady rhythm. But Luna never joined in, while the younger horses, like Sparky, a playful chestnut colt, would race around with boundless energy. Luna remained still. She would stand at the edge of the pasture, her eyes fixed on Sarah, even as Sparky galloped past her, snorting with joy. It was as if the playful antics of her fellow horses held no interest for her. She didn't shy away from them, nor did she seem afraid. She just didn't participate. She was always apart, yet always watching Sarah. Meal times were no different. When Sarah poured out the fresh feed, a mix of oats and alfalfa, the other horses would rush over, nudging each other gently to get their share. Their soft muzzles would plunge into the buckets, ears twitching as they savored the taste. But Luna would often wait. She'd watch Sarah as she moved from bucket to bucket, filling each one. Only when Sarah had finished and started to walk away would Luna slowly approach her own bucket. Even then, she would take a bite or two, then lift her head, her gaze sweeping across the ranch until it found Sarah again. She would stand still, chewing slowly, her eyes tracking Sarah's movements, even as her hunger was being satisfied. Sarah noticed this pattern clearly one afternoon. She was mending a broken gate latch near the far side of the pasture. The air was warm, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the old oak tree. All the other horses were gathered around their hay feeders, munching loudly, their tails swishing lazily. But out of the corner of her eye, Sarah saw Luna. The mare was standing perfectly still, under the shade of a different tree, not eating, not playing, just looking. Her head was held high, ears slightly forward, a picture of calm attention. Her focus was entirely on Sarah, who was busy with her tools. It wasn't just Sarah who noticed this. The other ranch hands, who had grown up with horses, were equally perplexed. That Luna, Jake, a weathered old cowboy, had remarked, "She watches you like a hawk, Sarah. Never seen a horse quite like it." They tried to tempt Luna with extra treats or gentle calls, but she never broke her silent vigil. She wouldn't join the playful chases, nor would she stick her nose into a shared pile of hay if it meant taking her eyes off Sarah for too long. Sarah started to wonder if Luna was lonely, perhaps missing a previous owner. But there was no sadness in her eyes, just that deep, steady observation. She seemed content in her stillness, in her quiet watchfulness. It was a peculiar kind of dedication, one that spoke volumes without a single whinny or nuzzle. Luna simply existed, a quiet, watchful presence, always centered on Sarah, even when the vibrant life of the ranch unfolded around her. The other horses might play or eat, but Luna would stand still, just looking. And Sarah, though she didn't understand it yet, was starting to feel a strange comfort in that constant, unwavering gaze. Luna's constant watchfulness, combined with her refusal to join the other horses, made Sarah feel a strong pull to connect with her. Sarah was a firm believer that all animals, especially horses, deserved kindness and a gentle hand. She wanted to show Luna that Willow Creek was a safe and loving home. So she started making special efforts to bridge the gap between them. One sunny morning, after finishing her chores, Sarah decided to approach Luna directly. She took a shiny, red apple from her pocket, one of Luna's favorites, she hoped. "Hello there, beautiful," Sarah murmured softly as she slowly walked towards the mare. Luna was standing near the old oak tree, her usual lookout spot. Her ears twitched forward, acknowledging Sarah's voice, but her body remained perfectly still. Sarah moved slowly, her steps light, not wanting to startle the mare. When she was about 10 feet away, she stopped, holding out the apple in her open palm. "Come on, sweet girl," she coaxed, her voice warm and inviting. "Look what I have for you." Luna's dark eyes seemed to study the apple, then Sarah's outstretched hand, then Sarah's face. For a moment, Sarah thought Luna might actually come closer. The mare took one small step forward, then another. Sarah's heart fluttered with a little bit of hope. But then, just as she was within reach, Luna paused. Her head tilted slightly, and she took a small step back, widening the distance between them. It wasn't a sudden, panicked retreat, but a slow, deliberate movement, like a gentle wave pulling back from the shore. Sarah stayed still, keeping the apple offered, but Luna didn't budge further. After a long moment, Sarah sighed softly and lowered her hand. Luna simply watched her, the apple forgotten. Sarah tried again later that week. This time, she brought a handful of sweet carrots, cut into easy-to-chew pieces. She found Luna grazing quietly in a secluded corner of the pasture. Sarah sat down on a nearby rock, hoping that being at a lower level would seem less threatening. She spoke in a calm, soothing voice, telling Luna about her day, about the funny antics of the other horses, about the plans for the ranch. She talked for a long time, letting the gentle sound of her voice carry on the breeze. Luna occasionally flicked an ear, showing she was listening, but she never came closer. The carrots remained in Sarah's hand, untouched. It wasn't just treats. Sarah would often pause near Luna when she was working, speaking to her in soft tones, praising her beautiful coat, or admiring her calm demeanor. She would try to move slowly past Luna, hoping the mare might allow a gentle touch. But every time Sarah got within a certain invisible boundary, Luna would simply shift, taking a few steps away, keeping that same distance. It was always a graceful, unhurried movement, never a bolt of fear, but a clear message. "Stay back." The other ranch hands had noticed Sarah's efforts. "She's a tough nut to crack, that one," Jake had commented, watching Sarah try to stroke Luna's mane. "She just doesn't seem to want company." Sarah felt a pang of disappointment, but she didn't give up. She knew that trust took time, especially with animals who might have had a difficult past. She didn't know Luna's story before she came to Willow Creek, and maybe that was part of it. But there was something about Luna's steady gaze that made Sarah feel it wasn't fear keeping them apart. It was something else. Luna kept her distance, not because she was scared, but for a reason Sarah couldn't yet understand. She just knew she had to keep trying. Sarah's kind heart longed to understand Luna. The mare's consistent distance, even when offered tempting treats, only made Sarah wonder more deeply why Luna was so different from all the other horses on the ranch. Sarah had worked with countless horses over the years, each with its own personality. But Luna was truly unique. Take Spirit, for example, a fiery stallion with a playful spirit. He loved to gallop across the fields, bucking and kicking with joy. Then would come to a sudden halt by Sarah, nudging her hand for a head scratch. Then there was Daisy, an older mare, gentle and wise, who would lean her head against Sarah's shoulder, sighing contentedly as Sarah brushed her mane. Even the shyest horses on the ranch, after a few weeks of gentle care, would eventually warm up, allowing Sarah to pet them or take treats from her hand. But Luna was different. She wasn't scared. Sarah could tell that much. A scared horse would flinch, tremble, or bolt away with wide, panicky eyes. Luna's eyes were always calm, her movements graceful and deliberate. It was a watchful calmness, an almost regal stillness that set her apart. She observed. She kept her space, but she never showed fear. Sarah often spent her evenings thinking about Luna. She would sit on her porch swing, watching the stars begin to twinkle, and replay the day's interactions in her mind. Had she done something wrong? Was there a subtle signal she was missing? She had read countless books on horse behavior, attended workshops, and learned from old-timers. Every horse had a story, and Sarah prided herself on being able to read between the lines, to understand the unspoken language of these majestic animals. But Luna's story remained a closed book. Maybe she just needs more time, Sarah would tell herself, trying to be patient. Yet, the longer Luna stayed at Willow Creek, the more her unusual behavior stood out. The other horses would whinny to each other, forming little groups, grooming each other's backs with soft nips. Luna would stand nearby sometimes, but always as an observer. She never joined their playful chases, never shared a comforting nuzzle. It was as if she existed in her own quiet world, connected to the ranch only by her unwavering gaze upon Sarah. Sarah started to pay closer attention to every detail of Luna's behavior. She noticed that Luna always positioned herself where she had a clear view of Sarah. If Sarah moved to the barn, Luna would shift to a spot where she could see the barn entrance. If Sarah went to the garden, Luna would find a vantage point overlooking the garden. It was a constant repositioning, a subtle dance of observation that only Sarah seemed to be the focus of. She wondered if Luna had been trained in a special way, or if she came from a place where horses were kept separate from humans. But the papers from Luna's previous owner gave no clues, only stating that Luna was a quiet mare, good-natured and healthy. Nothing explained this intense, personal watchfulness. Sarah found herself asking, "Why me? Why only me?" It was a question that lingered in the air, a silent echo in her mind as she went about her day, always under Luna's calm, unblinking gaze. Luna was simply unlike any horse Sarah had ever known, and the mystery of her difference only grew with each passing sunset. The mystery of Luna's watchful nature continued to swirl in Sarah's mind. But ranch life, as always, kept her busy. There was always something to do, something to mend, or something to build. One particular sunny afternoon, the kind where the air felt warm and soft, Sarah had a task that required her full attention. A section of the fence on the far side of the property needed fixing. This wasn't just any fence. It bordered a tricky patch of ground, a place where the earth sloped sharply down to a small, winding creek. This area was often muddy after rain, making the ground uneven and a bit slippery. Large, ancient roots from an old willow tree snaked across the path, hidden by tall grass, posing a tripping hazard. It was a place where one had to watch their step. The fence here was made of sturdy wooden posts and thick wire. But one of the main posts had come loose, leaning precariously. If it fell, it would leave a gap big enough for a curious horse to wander through, potentially into the creek. Sarah gathered her tools: a heavy mallet, a coil of fresh wire, a bag of sturdy nails, and her trusty work gloves. She hummed a little tune as she made her way across the pasture, the sunlight warm on her shoulders. She loved being outdoors, feeling the sun and the breeze. As she neared the tricky patch, she saw Luna, as usual, standing under a distant oak tree. The mare's head was turned towards her, a familiar, unblinking gaze fixed on Sarah. Sarah offered a small wave, but Luna remained perfectly still, a gray statue against the green backdrop. Reaching the broken fence section, Sarah surveyed the damage. The loose post was indeed wobbly, its base having rotted a bit from the damp ground. She pulled on her gloves and got to work. First, she had to clear away some of the thick brush and tall weeds that had grown around the post. She knelt down, digging with a small trowel, carefully exposing the post's base. The ground was indeed soft and uneven, just as she remembered. She felt her boot slip a little on a patch of wet earth near one of the willow roots. The sun was high now, casting dappled shadows through the leaves. Sarah wiped a bead of sweat from her brow with the back of her gloved hand. She had to really concentrate on her footing while also wrestling with the heavy post. She pushed and pulled, trying to get the loose post into a more stable position before she could nail it firmly back into place. The ground felt deceptive under her feet. Some spots were firm, others unexpectedly soft. She leaned against the fence, catching her breath, and glanced up. Luna was still there, a silent shape in the distance, still watching. Sarah couldn't help but wonder again what was going on in that mare's mind. Why was she always so focused on her? Sarah gave a little shrug, picked up her mallet, and turned back to the task at hand. She had to fix this fence properly, making sure it was safe for all her horses, even the ones who chose to keep their distance. She pounded a nail into the wood with a solid thunk, her attention fully on the work, completely unaware of what was about to happen next. Sarah continued to wrestle with the stubborn fence post, her brow furrowed in concentration. The sun beat down warmly, making her work harder. Her attention was completely on making the fence strong and safe. She didn't notice a small, old wooden bridge just a few steps away, hidden mostly by a thick patch of wild roses and tall, reedy grass. This little bridge crossed a shallow ditch, which usually carried rainwater away from the pasture. It wasn't a big ditch, but it was deep enough to twist an ankle if someone stepped into it wrong. The bridge itself was old, built years ago by the ranch's previous owner. It was made of sturdy logs for the main supports and thick wooden planks for the walking surface. Most of the planks were firm, but over time, one near the middle had come loose. It wasn't completely detached, but it wiggled and sagged whenever anything stepped on it. The wood was faded and weathered, blending in with the dry leaves and dirt around it, making the wobbly plank very hard to spot. Sarah had used this bridge countless times without a second thought. She usually crossed it on her way to the far pasture or to check on the water pump. But today, she was working right next to it, facing away, totally focused on the fence post. Her tools were scattered on the ground near her, and she was planning to move them across the bridge to get to another section of the fence once this post was secured. She hammered another nail, the sound echoing softly in the quiet afternoon. Almost there, she muttered to herself, pushing the heavy post with her shoulder. Her back was to the bridge, and the tall grass acted like a curtain, hiding the danger. She was thinking about how much longer it would take and what other chores awaited her. The sun was getting lower, casting longer shadows across the field. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves in the nearby trees, and Sarah felt a little shiver, despite the warmth. She was so deep in her work that she didn't hear the slight creak of the loose plank as a gust of wind pushed against it. She didn't see the way it dipped a little, waiting for an unsuspecting foot. Her mind was on securing the fence, on the feel of the rough wood and the solid thud of the mallet. From her distant spot under the oak tree, Luna watched. Her head was still, her eyes unwavering. But now, there was a tiny shift in her stance. Her ears, usually relaxed, were now pointed sharply forward, aimed directly at Sarah. A muscle twitched in her jaw. She seemed to be holding her breath, a silent tension in her usually calm body. Sarah, oblivious, reached for another nail from her tool bag, which was just a few steps past the loose plank. She was about to take those steps, ready to cross the small bridge without even looking down. The wobbly plank, hidden from her view, lay directly in her path, a silent trap. Sarah reached for her tool bag, her mind already on the next nail she needed. She took a step, intending to cross the small, hidden bridge to retrieve her pliers. Her foot was just about to land on the wobbly plank. Suddenly, a sound ripped through the quiet afternoon. It was a loud, piercing whinny, sharp and urgent, unlike anything Sarah had ever heard from a horse before. It wasn't the playful whinny of a horse greeting a friend, nor the soft nicker of a mare talking to her foal. This was a cry of alarm, full of a desperate warning. Sarah froze, her foot hovering in the air. The sound was so sudden, so unexpected, that it made her jump. It came from Luna. Sarah spun around, her eyes wide with surprise. She looked towards the distant oak tree, where Luna usually stood in calm silence. But Luna was no longer calm. The mare had transformed. Her head was no longer gently tilted. It was raised high, her ears flattened slightly, a sign of distress. Her nostrils were flared, and her dark eyes, usually so serene, were wide and wild. Her body was tense, quivering with an energy Sarah had never witnessed in her. And then she whinnied again, a shorter, more insistent sound, followed by a powerful stomp of her front hoof on the ground. It was a clear, unmistakable signal of warning, an urgent plea for attention. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, despite the warm sun. She had never heard Luna make a sound like that. In all the weeks Luna had been at Willow Creek, she had been the picture of quiet grace. Not a whinny, not a nicker, not even a soft sigh. To hear such a strong, startling sound from her was truly shocking. It cut through the peaceful ranch air like a knife, making the other grazing horses lift their heads in surprise. The intensity in Luna's eyes was unmistakable. They weren't just watching now. They were pleading, demanding. Her gaze was locked onto Sarah, then darted quickly down to the ground right in front of Sarah's foot. It was a quick, pointed movement, as if Luna was trying to tell her, "Look, look there." Sarah, still reeling from the sudden noise, slowly lowered her foot, not onto the ground, but just holding it in the air for a moment. Her heart was pounding. This was not the quiet, distant Luna she knew. This was a horse deeply agitated, trying desperately to communicate something vital. The urgency in Luna's whinny was so powerful that it couldn't be ignored. It was a sound that meant danger, a sound that demanded immediate heed. Sarah took a cautious step back, away from where her foot had been hovering. She looked at Luna, who let out another soft, anxious whinny, then nudged her head, as if urging Sarah to pay attention to the spot she was pointing at with her gaze. Sarah's eyes followed Luna's urgent focus. The silence that had always surrounded Luna was broken by this loud cry, and in that broken silence, a new kind of message was being sent. It was a message that finally, truly, grabbed Sarah's attention. The urgent whinny had pierced through Sarah's work-focused mind, instantly snapping her out of her concentration. Her heart was still thumping from the shock of the sound, and she watched Luna, who was now moving with purpose. The mare wasn't just standing there. She was trotting quickly toward Sarah, her usually quiet demeanor replaced by a clear sense of urgency. As Luna got closer, she let out another series of short, sharp whinnies, each one sounding like a warning. Her powerful hooves struck the ground with a soft thud, a rhythmic stomping that emphasized her message. It wasn't an aggressive stomp, but a deliberate one, designed to grab Sarah's full attention and make her understand that something was very wrong. Sarah stood completely still, watching Luna approach. She had never seen the mare move with such speed and determination towards her. Luna had always kept her distance, but now she was closing in, her eyes wide and focused on Sarah. When Luna was just a few feet away, she stopped. Her nostrils flared and she snorted, a deep, rumbling sound that spoke volumes of her worry. Then Luna did something even more surprising. She lowered her head and gently, but firmly, nudged Sarah's arm with her muzzle. It wasn't a playful nudge, nor was it a request for a treat. It was a clear, pushing motion, guiding Sarah backward, away from the spot where her foot had almost landed. The nudge was soft enough not to hurt, but strong enough that Sarah took a step back, then another. Luna kept her muzzle against Sarah's arm, guiding her, pushing her away from the fence post and, more importantly, away from the hidden bridge. "Whoa, Luna, what is it?" Sarah murmured, completely bewildered but also deeply attentive. She had never been this close to Luna before, and the mare's touch, though gentle, was filled with a powerful, unspoken message. Luna continued to nudge, her large, warm head pressing against Sarah, moving her away from the danger zone. Her eyes kept darting to the ground in front of where Sarah had been standing, then back to Sarah as if to say, "Don't go there, it's not safe." Sarah, now several steps away from the wobbly plank, felt a strange mix of confusion and awe. Luna was not only speaking to her with sounds, but with her actions. The mare's usually calm body was still tense, but her nudges were careful, ensuring Sarah understood without causing any fear. It was a protective action, a clear attempt to move Sarah out of harm's way. Luna took another soft stomp, then looked directly at the ground, then back at Sarah, her gaze urging her to look. Sarah, now a safe distance away, slowly turned her head, following Luna's insistent gaze to the very spot where she had almost placed her foot. The mare's frantic whinnies, her stomping hooves, and her gentle yet firm nudges had successfully moved Sarah away from the hidden danger. Now, it was time for Sarah to understand why. Sarah's mind raced, trying to make sense of Luna's sudden, forceful intervention. She was completely surprised by the mare's actions. It was as if a quiet friend had suddenly found their voice, and that voice was screaming. The whinnies, the stomping, the firm but gentle nudges. It was all so out of character for the silent, distant Luna she knew. Sarah had never experienced such a direct and urgent warning from any animal before. Her heart was still beating fast, a drum in her chest. She looked at Luna, whose eyes were still wide with concern, fixed on a spot on the ground. The mare took a small step back, giving Sarah space, but her gaze remained pointed, an unspoken command for Sarah to look. "What is it, girl?" Sarah whispered, her voice a little shaky. She felt a deep, strange feeling wash over her, a mix of confusion, a little fear, and a growing sense of wonder. Following Luna's intense gaze, Sarah slowly turned her head. Her eyes scanned the ground where Luna was looking. At first, she didn't see anything out of the ordinary, just the usual tall grass, some dry leaves, and the edge of the small ditch. But Luna let out another soft whinny, a little less frantic now, but still insistent. Her head dipped, pointing her nose directly at a specific spot. Sarah squinted, trying to pierce through the natural camouflage of the area. And then, she saw it. Barely visible under a tangle of wild rose bushes and tall, reedy grass, was the old wooden bridge. And right in the middle of it, just where her foot had been about to land, was the loose plank. The plank was old and weathered, its color blending perfectly with the surrounding earth and dry leaves. It wasn't completely broken, but it was clearly unstable. One end was lifted slightly, leaving a gap, and the other end sagged downwards. If she had stepped on it, her foot would have surely plunged through, possibly twisting her ankle or worse, sending her tumbling into the shallow ditch. The ditch wasn't deep, but it was rocky and uneven, a sure recipe for injury. A gasp escaped Sarah's lips. A cold shiver, much stronger than the earlier breeze, ran down her spine. How could she have missed it? She had walked this path 1,000 times, but today, with her focus on the fence, the danger had been completely invisible to her. The tall grass and the way the sun cast shadows had hidden it perfectly. She looked back at Luna, who was now standing a few feet away, her body still tense, but her eyes softening slightly as Sarah understood. There was a quiet intelligence in Luna's gaze, a profound understanding that left Sarah speechless. This wasn't just a random act. This was a deliberate warning, a protective gesture. Luna had seen the danger that Sarah, in her busy work, had completely overlooked. All the weeks of Luna's silent staring, her constant observation, her refusal to engage, suddenly made a different kind of sense. It wasn't about being shy or uninterested. It was about something else entirely. Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. She had been so focused on trying to get Luna to trust her, to come closer, that she hadn't realized Luna had been trusting her with her watchful presence all along. The mare had been keeping an eye on her, not out of curiosity, but out of care. With Luna's urgent whinnies and nudges still echoing in her mind, Sarah's eyes finally focused on the hidden danger. There it was, clear as day now that she knew what to look for. The old wooden bridge spanning the narrow ditch. And right in the middle, a single plank was obviously loose and broken. It lay nestled among the tall, wild grass, almost perfectly camouflaged. The wood was gray and splintered, worn smooth by years of weather and foot traffic. One end of the plank was lifted high, sticking up like a trap, while the other end dipped dangerously low, almost touching the water in the ditch below. It was rotten in places, soft and crumbly, especially along the edges where it should have been fastened. Sarah carefully stepped closer, her heart still thumping, and bent down to get a better look. She reached out a gloved hand and gently pressed on the raised end of the plank. It wobbled easily, rocking up and down with very little effort. A shiver ran through her as she imagined her foot landing on that spot. The rotten wood would have given way instantly, sending her plunging into the rocky ditch. It was ready to break, like a weak branch on an old tree, just waiting for a bit of weight to snap it. The ditch itself, though small, looked far more menacing from this new perspective. It was filled with jagged rocks and slippery mud, a perfect place to twist an ankle or even break a bone. Sarah realized with a sickening lurch how close she had come to a serious accident. If Luna hadn't intervened, she would have stepped right onto it, completely unaware. She looked back at Luna, who was now standing a little calmer, but still watching Sarah with intense focus. The mare's eyes seemed to hold a silent question. Do you see it now? Do you understand? And Sarah did. She saw the wobbly plank, a silent threat, and she understood Luna's frantic warning. The sight of the broken plank brought all of Luna's strange behaviors into sharp, clear focus. Her constant staring, her refusal to join the other horses, her maintaining a distance. It all clicked into place. Luna wasn't being shy or unfriendly. She was being vigilant. She had been watching Sarah, not out of curiosity, but out of a deep, protective instinct. She had noticed the danger, probably days ago, and had been patiently waiting for the moment she could warn Sarah. Sarah felt a rush of warmth and gratitude wash over her. She gently touched the loose plank again, confirming its weakness. It was a clear, present danger, and Luna had saved her from it. The mystery of the quiet mare was finally solved. Luna wasn't just a horse. She was a guardian, a silent protector. And in that moment, Sarah realized the true depth of the bond they had formed, a bond built not on playful nuzzles or shared treats, but on trust and watchful care. The wobbly plank on the bridge was indeed ready to break if stepped on, and Luna had been the only one to see it and act. Standing before the dangerous, wobbly plank, Sarah felt a wave of understanding wash over her. All the weeks of confusion, the unanswered questions about Luna's behavior, suddenly evaporated. It wasn't just that Luna had warned her. It was the reason for Luna's constant watching that now shone bright and clear. Sarah realized, with a profound sense of awe, that Luna had been watching her to keep her safe, not just staring out of curiosity or shyness. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, forming a complete picture. Luna's quiet nature, her refusal to play with the other horses, her consistent distance. It was all a part of her vigilant role. She hadn't been aloof. She had been observant. Her dark, intelligent eyes weren't just following Sarah. They were scanning for danger, for anything that might harm her. Sarah looked at Luna, who was now standing a few feet away, her body still but her eyes soft and knowing. "Luna," Sarah whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You were watching out for me." The mare gave a soft snort, a gentle puff of air that seemed to confirm Sarah's realization. It wasn't about treats or friendly pats for Luna. Her way of showing care was different, deeper. She had found her purpose on the ranch, not as a playful companion, but as a guardian. She had seen the dangers Sarah hadn't, the loose rocks, the slippery patches, and yes, the hidden, broken plank on the bridge. She hadn't been trying to get closer to Sarah in the usual way. She had been close in a way that truly mattered, always a silent protector. Sarah remembered all the times Luna had shifted her position to get a better view of Sarah, how she would pause her eating to watch Sarah work. At the time, Sarah had thought it was just Luna's peculiar habit. Now, she understood it was a careful, deliberate act of vigilance. Luna was ensuring that Sarah was always in her sight, always under her watchful eye. A warmth spread through Sarah's chest, a feeling of deep gratitude and respect for this remarkable mare. She had misjudged Luna, thinking the mare was simply shy or perhaps a little sad. But Luna had been strong, focused, and loyal in her own unique way. She hadn't needed to be loud or overtly affectionate to show her bond. Her unwavering attention, her silent vigil, was her powerful way of caring. "Thank you, Luna," Sarah said, reaching out a hand, not with a treat, but simply in acknowledgement. This time, Luna didn't back away. She stood her ground, her gaze steady, accepting Sarah's unspoken thanks. In that moment, the barrier between them dissolved, replaced by a profound understanding. Sarah finally saw Luna not as a mystery to be solved, but as a truly special companion, whose silent stares were the strongest form of protection she could offer. Luna had been watching her to keep her safe, and Sarah finally understood. With her new understanding of Luna's true nature, Sarah knew exactly what she had to do next. The dangerous plank on the bridge couldn't stay that way for another minute. It was a clear threat, not just to her, but potentially to any animal or person who might unknowingly cross it. She carefully gathered her tools, her earlier task of fixing the fence post now taking a back seat to this more urgent repair. Sarah walked over to the old wooden bridge, her steps now much more careful, her eyes keenly aware of every detail on the ground. She knelt beside the loose plank, examining it closely. The wood was indeed soft and rotting, especially where it was supposed to be nailed down. She could see where the old nails had rusted away, leaving the plank free to wobble and tilt. "All right, girl," Sarah murmured to Luna, who had followed her and was now standing a respectful distance away, still watching. "Time to make this safe." Sarah pulled out her hammer and a handful of new, strong nails. She began by carefully prying up the loose plank, making sure not to splinter the surrounding wood too much. It came up easily, confirming just how unstable it had been. She then cleared away the rotten bits of wood from the main supports of the bridge, making a clean surface for the new plank. Luckily, Sarah always kept a stack of spare lumber in the barn for just such emergencies. She quickly walked back to the barn, retrieved a fresh, sturdy piece of wood, and returned to the bridge. As she worked, Sarah couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. Every swing of the hammer, every firm nail driven into the wood, was a thank you to Luna. She thought about how many times she had walked over this bridge without a care, how easily she could have been hurt. And all that time, Luna had been watching, silently aware of the danger. The sun began to dip lower, casting long golden shadows across the ranch as Sarah finished her work. She carefully placed the new plank, making sure it fit snugly. Then, with strong, steady blows, she hammered in new nails, securing it firmly to the bridge's supports. She tested it with her foot, pressing down hard. It was solid, no wobble, no creak. The bridge was safe again. Sarah stood up, wiping her hands on her jeans, a sense of accomplishment warming her. She looked over at Luna, who had remained her silent observer throughout the entire repair. The mare's eyes were calm now, the earlier tension gone. She seemed to know the danger was past. "All safe, Luna," Sarah said, a soft smile on her face. She walked over to the mare, and this time, Luna didn't back away. Sarah reached out a hand and gently stroked Luna's neck, feeling the soft, warm fur. Luna leaned into the touch, a subtle shift that spoke volumes. It was a small gesture, but for Sarah, it meant everything. She was so thankful for Luna's quiet protection, for the watchful eyes that had seen what hers had missed. The ranch was safer now, all thanks to a silent mare. After fixing the bridge, Sarah stood beside Luna, stroking her soft neck. The setting sun cast long shadows, but the warmth in Sarah's heart was brighter than any daylight. From that day on, everything about Luna changed for Sarah. Her understanding of the mare shifted completely. Luna's silent stares, which had once been a source of confusion and a little frustration, were now clearly understood as a deep sign of care. No longer did Sarah wonder why Luna didn't join the other horses in their playful antics. She knew now that Luna had a different job, a more serious one, that kept her focused. Luna wasn't being antisocial. She was being vigilant. Her calm, steady gaze wasn't an empty stare. It was a constant watch, a quiet promise of protection. Sarah started to see every interaction with Luna through this new lens. When Luna would turn her head to follow Sarah's path across the pasture, Sarah no longer saw it as just observation. She saw it as Luna making sure she was safe, that no hidden danger lay in her way. If Sarah walked near a patch of rough ground, she would often catch Luna's eye, and the mare would offer a soft snort, a subtle acknowledgement that she too was aware. The ranch felt different too, now that Sarah understood Luna. There was a new layer of comfort, knowing she had such a watchful guardian. Sarah would often find herself smiling at Luna, a warm, knowing smile that the mare seemed to return with a gentle blink of her dark eyes. Sarah no longer tried to coax Luna with apples or carrots. She knew Luna didn't need those typical signs of affection. Instead, Sarah would simply walk closer, talk to her softly, and sometimes Luna would allow a gentle stroke on her forehead or a soft brush along her mane. These moments were rare and treasured, far more meaningful than any treat. They were moments of shared understanding, of a silent language spoken between a human and a horse. The other ranch hands still sometimes joked about Luna's stare, but Sarah would just smile. "She's just looking out for me," she would say, a hint of pride in her voice. And sometimes she would share the story of the wobbly plank, explaining how Luna had saved her. Jake, the old cowboy, would nod slowly, a thoughtful look on his face. "Never seen a horse quite like it," he'd agree, but now with respect instead of just wonder. Luna continued to be the quietest mare on the ranch, rarely whinnying or joining the playful herds. But her silence was no longer a mystery. It was a testament to her steadfast nature, her unwavering focus on keeping Sarah safe. From that day on, Sarah understood Luna's silent stares were not just staring. They were a profound expression of love and protection. And that understanding changed everything. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, but Luna's dedication never wavered. With the mystery of her stares solved, Sarah found a deep comfort in Luna's constant presence. Luna continued to watch over Sarah, a loyal and watchful friend. Her silent guardianship a steady anchor in the rhythm of ranch life. Sarah no longer felt the need to try and draw Luna out of her quiet ways. She understood that this was Luna's nature, her unique way of being. Instead, Sarah respected it, finding peace in the mare's steadfast gaze. When Sarah was out in the fields, checking on the herd, she would often glance back towards the oak tree or the edge of the pasture. And there Luna would be, a still gray shape, her head turned, her eyes fixed on Sarah. It was a silent conversation, a constant reassurance. Luna's watchfulness wasn't limited to just big dangers like the broken bridge. Sarah noticed smaller instances too. If Sarah was carrying a heavy bucket and stumbled slightly on uneven ground, Luna would often shift her weight, her ears twitching as if ready to spring into action. If a strange car drove too close to the ranch boundary, Luna would be the first to raise her head, her gaze sharp, alerting Sarah to the unusual presence before anyone else. She was the ranch's silent alarm, always aware, always observing. Their bond grew stronger, built on this deep, unspoken understanding. Sarah would often talk to Luna as she worked, sharing her thoughts and plans. She knew Luna understood, not with words, but with the quiet wisdom in her eyes. Sometimes Sarah would sit near Luna in the pasture, simply enjoying the mare's calm company. Luna would graze softly nearby, but always with one ear cocked toward Sarah, her eyes occasionally flicking over to ensure Sarah was still there, still safe. The other horses, who once seemed to ignore Luna's solitary nature, now also seemed to accept her role. They knew Luna was different, but they also recognized her strength and her quiet power. She was an elder, a sentinel, a protector in her own right. One blustery autumn day, a strong wind rattled through the ranch, making loose branches creak and leaves fly. Sarah was trying to secure a tarp over some hay bales that were at risk of getting wet. The wind was so strong it almost knocked her off her feet. Suddenly, a familiar shape appeared beside her. Luna. The mare positioned herself between Sarah and the fiercest gusts of wind, her strong body acting as a shield, allowing Sarah to tie down the tarp without being buffeted by the wind. It was a simple act, but it showed just how deeply Luna cared, how she was always ready to help, even in the smallest ways. Luna was more than just a horse on the ranch. She was Sarah's loyal friend, her silent guardian. Her unwavering watchfulness was a constant reminder of the profound connections that could be forged, not through words or typical displays of affection, but through deep understanding and quiet, steadfast care. She was a silent mare, but her presence spoke volumes, a testament to a unique and beautiful friendship. The bond between Sarah and Luna wasn't like any other Sarah had ever known. It wasn't built on loud greetings or playful nuzzles, but on something much deeper: understanding and silent trust. After the incident at the bridge, their connection grew stronger each day, a quiet, unbreakable thread woven into the fabric of their lives on Willow Creek Ranch. Sarah learned to read Luna's subtle cues. A slight flick of an ear when Sarah approached a slippery patch of mud, a gentle shift in her posture if a fence post seemed loose. Luna's vigilance became a comforting presence, a silent partner in Sarah's daily tasks. And in return, Sarah showed Luna a quiet respect that the mare seemed to appreciate more than any treat. She would often pause her work to simply stand near Luna, offering a soft word or a gentle hand on her mane. These moments were filled with an unspoken language, a shared peace that needed no words. Luna, for her part, began to allow Sarah closer, while she still maintained her distance from the other horses. She would sometimes walk alongside Sarah as she moved around the ranch. Her dark eyes, once a puzzle, now held a clear depth of affection and loyalty. She would follow Sarah like a shadow, a silent guardian, always nearby, always watching. Their unique friendship became a quiet legend on the ranch. The other ranch hands, who once joked about Luna's stares, now spoke of her with a knowing admiration. "That Luna," Jake would often say, "she's got a special way about her. Smartest horse I ever did see." They understood now that Luna's quietness wasn't a lack of spirit, but a deep, focused intelligence. One evening, as the stars began to sprinkle across the darkening sky, Sarah sat on her porch, watching Luna graze peacefully in the pasture. The mare looked up, caught Sarah's eye, and gave a soft, contented sigh. It was a sound of peace, of belonging, a sound that spoke of complete trust. Sarah felt a warmth spread through her. She realized that Luna had chosen her, chosen to be her protector, her silent friend. Their bond was a testament to the idea that true connection doesn't always need grand gestures or loud declarations. Sometimes, the most powerful relationships are forged in quiet moments, in shared understandings, and in the unwavering, silent trust that grows between two souls. Luna's quiet protection had not only saved Sarah from harm, but had also opened her heart to a different kind of love, a love built on respect and a deep, unspoken bond. As the years passed, Luna remained a constant. Her coat might have gained a few more silver hairs, and her steps might have become a little slower, but her watchful gaze never faltered. She was always there, a loyal and loving presence, her silent stares forever a symbol of the profound care she held for her rancher. And Sarah, forever grateful, knew that in Luna she had found a friendship more precious and true than any she could have imagined. Their bond, indeed, grew stronger with each passing day, built on understanding and silent trust.